my dad yelled. "Leave my house." Everyone else stood behind him like I was the problem. I didn't argue, didn't shed a tear. By sunrise, I finished signing the final papers for a $95 million private island fortress, bought outright in my name. Then I walked away for good, without looking back once. I never thought a simple Thanksgiving dinner could unravel my entire life. But that's exactly what happened. In one horrifying moment, I went from announcing my engagement to my father screaming at me to get out of his house forever, the entire family turning on me like a pack of wolves. I was 28 years old, standing there, watching my mother, Patricia, nod approvingly as my father, Charles, pointed to the door. My brother, Shane, just crossed his arms, a smug smirk plastered across his face. And my sister, Ashley? She actually started clapping. Their crime? Choosing to love Emma, a kindergarten teacher, instead of the wealthy socialite they'd meticulously picked out for me. They called me a disgrace, a blight on the family name, all because I dared to follow my heart. The next morning, it felt like I'd been hit by a sledgehammer. I woke up in my downtown apartment, a pit in my stomach, to find my phone buzzing with a nightmare. 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, each one more venomous than the last. Shane's message was a punch to the gut. "You are officially dead to this family, you pathetic disappointment." Ashley sent a photo of my childhood bedroom, everything crammed into garbage bags, captioned, "Trash belongs on the curb." But the message that truly shattered something inside me wasn't a text at all. It was a formal letter, delivered by a courier, emblazoned with the expensive letterhead of the family law firm. From my mother, Patricia. The words were cold, calculated, utterly devoid of warmth. "Due to your deliberate defiance of family values and your choice to associate with individuals beneath our social standing, you are hereby disinherited from all family assets, trusts, and future considerations." I just sat there, clutching that letter, and suddenly, my entire life flashed before my eyes. Every single moment of my childhood where nothing I did was ever good enough. When I graduated valedictorian from MIT, my father complained I should have gone to Harvard. When I started my own tech consulting firm and landed Fortune 500 clients, he called it playing with computers, saying I was wasting my potential. Even when I bought my first luxury car with money I earned, he accused me of being flashy and vulgar. It was a never-ending cycle of disapproval. An hour later, Emma found me on the couch, still staring at that damning letter. Her kind eyes filled with tears as she read it over my shoulder. "Dirk," she whispered, her voice breaking, "I am so sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't encouraged you to tell them about our engagement." I pulled her close, feeling her tremble against my chest. "Emma," I said, "you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. They didn't reject you. They rejected me. They've been rejecting me my entire life." She looked up at me, those beautiful brown eyes that had captured my heart 2 years earlier, full of concern. "What are we going to do? Your whole life is connected to your family business." It was the same question that had been gnawing at me all morning. The Whitmore family, they'd built half the skyscrapers in our city. My grandfather started that construction company in 1945, and it had ballooned into a multi-billion-dollar empire. I'd always just assumed I'd inherit my share eventually, even though I chose a different path. But as I held Emma, feeling her heartbreak over my family's cruelty, something inside me shifted. A profound realization hit me. I had spent my entire life trying to earn approval from people who would never give it. I'd been playing by their rules, hoping, foolishly, that someday they would just accept me for who I really was. That afternoon, I walked to my computer and logged into my personal banking account for the first time in months. And what I saw there, it made me smile for the first time since that disastrous dinner. My family had no idea what I had been quietly building on my own. But then, my phone rang. It was my bank's customer service number. The representative's voice was apologetic but firm. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm calling to inform you that your trust fund account has been frozen by order of the primary account holder, Charles Whitmore. All access has been revoked effective immediately." I hung up the phone, and, to Emma's shock, I burst out laughing. "Dirk, are you okay?" she asked, looking at me like I'd lost my mind. "They just cut off your trust fund." "Emma," I said, pulling up a different screen on my laptop, "they have no idea what they just did. They think they control my future, but they don't even know who I really am." 3 days later, I was sitting across from Douglas Chun in his corner office, 50 floors up in the First National Bank Tower. Douglas had been managing my private investment portfolio for 7 years, ever since I graduated from MIT. While my family was busy dismissing my computer hobby, I had been quietly building something they couldn't even fathom. "Let me show you exactly where we stand," Douglas said, pulling up my account summary. "Your cryptocurrency investments from college have appreciated to $34 million. Your early investments in emerging tech startups are now worth $41 million. Your real estate portfolio is valued at $12 million. I stared at the bottom line, $87 million. "Dirk, you understand that this puts you in the top 1% of individual wealth holders in the country, right?" Douglas continued, a slight awe in his voice. "You have been incredibly strategic with these investments. Most people your age who inherit family money lose it within a generation. You built this from nothing." The irony wasn't lost on me. While my father criticized my career choice and my family treated me like a financial burden, I had quietly accumulated more liquid wealth than most of their construction company's assets. I'd started with $5,000 I earned from part-time jobs in college, investing in Bitcoin when it was $12 a coin, buying shares in Tesla and Amazon when others thought they were risky startups. Emma sat beside me, her hand covering her mouth in shock. "I had no idea," she whispered. "All this time, I thought you were just getting by with your consulting work." "I never wanted money to define our relationship," I explained. "I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I have in my bank account. But now I realize something important. My family never knew who I really was either. They saw what they wanted to see." Douglas leaned forward, a glint of interest in his eyes. "What do you want to do with these assets, Dirk? You have options most people only dream about." I thought about my father's face when he screamed at me to get out. I thought about my mother's cold letter of disinheritance, Shane's smug expression, Ashley's cruel applause. They had spent my entire life telling me I wasn't good enough, that I would never amount to anything without their name and their money. "Douglas," I said, a new resolve hardening my voice, "I want to disappear from their world completely. I want to build a life so far beyond their comprehension that they will never be able to touch me again." He nodded approvingly. "What did you have in mind?" "Something that proves I never needed them," I replied. "Something that shows them exactly what they threw away." Douglas pulled out a leather portfolio. "Actually, something interesting just came across my desk yesterday. A private estate sale that might appeal to someone in your situation. It's completely confidential, available only to qualified buyers." He handed me a glossy brochure, and the photographs took my breath away. A medieval castle, perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, surrounded by 30 acres of pristine forest and gardens. It even had its own private harbor and helicopter landing pad. "Castle Windmere," Douglas explained. "It's located on a private island 12 miles off the coast of Maine. The previous owner was Harrison Blackwell, the technology billionaire who died last month. He spent 20 years and $150 million restoring this 13th-century castle stone by stone, transporting it from Scotland and rebuilding it with modern amenities." Emma grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. "Dirk, it's like something from a fairy tale." "The asking price is $99 million, Douglas continued. "Cash purchase only, no financing available. The seller wants to close within 30 days. I looked at those images, the castle towers rising against the ocean sky, and something clicked into place. This wasn't just a house. This was a statement. This was everything my family said I could never achieve, multiplied by 1,000. "Douglas, can you arrange a viewing?" "Absolutely. But Dirk, are you sure about this? It's a significant portion of your liquid assets." I thought about the trust fund my family had just yanked away from me, probably worth $5 or $6 million. They thought they were punishing me by taking away pocket change. "Set up the viewing for tomorrow," I said, a defiant smile spreading across my face. "And Douglas, when we make the offer, I want it to be full price, cash, with immediate closing." As we left the bank, Emma was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke up. "Dirk, are you doing this to hurt your family or to heal yourself?" It was a question I couldn't answer yet, but I knew that for the first time in my life, I was about to make a decision that was completely mine, with money I had earned myself, for a future I would build on my own terms. That evening, Douglas called with news that would change everything. "Dirk, I spoke with the seller's agent. They're interested in your offer, but they want to meet you first." Apparently, Harrison Blackwell left specific instructions about who could purchase the island. He wanted someone who would appreciate what he built there. What kind of instructions? I asked, intrigued. The buyer has to demonstrate that they understand what it means to build something meaningful from nothing. They have to prove they're not just another rich person collecting trophies. I smiled for the first time in days. Harrison Blackwell had been exactly like me. Someone who built wealth through innovation and hard work, not inheritance. Maybe this castle was meant to be mine after all. The helicopter ride to Windmere Island the next morning felt like entering another world. As we approached the coast of Maine, the pilot pointed downward. There she is, he called over the engine noise. Castle Windmere. As we descended, the full majesty of the estate came into view. The castle rose from granite cliffs like something from a medieval legend, its towers and battlements perfectly silhouetted against the morning sky. Ancient stone walls enclosed formal gardens, courtyards, and outbuildings that looked like they had stood there for centuries, not just decades. Emma gripped my hand as we landed. I can't believe this is real, she breathed. Our guide, Jennifer Walsh, a distinguished real estate agent, greeted us. Welcome to Castle Windmere. I've been managing this property since Harrison Blackwell's passing, and I have to tell you, I've never seen anything quite like it. The Great Hall took my breath away. Vaulted ceilings soared 40 feet overhead, supported by hand-carved stone columns. Tapestries covered the walls, and a fireplace large enough to walk into dominated one end of the room. But what struck me most was how livable it felt. This wasn't a museum piece. It was a home designed for real life. Harrison spent 2 decades perfecting every detail, Jennifer explained. He incorporated the most advanced technology available, but hidden within authentic medieval architecture. Every stone was numbered and catalogued when the original castle was disassembled in Scotland, then rebuilt here exactly as it stood 800 years ago. We toured the master suite in the highest tower, with panoramic ocean views. The private library held over 10,000 books and a hidden passage to a wine cellar. Guest quarters could accommodate 20 people, each room uniquely designed. But it was the technology infrastructure that truly impressed me. Fiber optic internet, satellite communications, a fully equipped server room, and conference facilities. Harrison Blackwell had built the ultimate retreat for someone who needed both isolation and global connectivity. The property includes the entire island, Jennifer added. 30 acres total, with private beaches, hiking trails, and a working lighthouse from 1867. The harbor can accommodate yachts up to 200 feet, and there's a separate guest house for staff or visitors. Emma wandered through the rooms like she was in a dream, running her fingers along stone walls, staring out windows at views that belonged in travel magazines. Dirk, can you imagine living here? I could imagine it perfectly. More than that, I could imagine the look on my father's face when he learned his disappointing son owned a private castle worth more than the family's entire construction business. But there was something else drawing me to this place, beyond just the statement it would make. As we explored, I felt a sense of peace I had never experienced before. This was a place where I could build the life I actually wanted, not the life others expected me to live. In the castle study, Jennifer showed us a leather-bound journal left behind by Harrison Blackwell. He wanted the next owner to understand why he built this place, she explained. I opened it and read the first entry. I am building this castle not as an escape from the world, but as a foundation for the person I want to become. My family never understood my vision or supported my dreams. They saw my success as luck rather than hard work. I need a place where I can create without judgment, love without conditions, and build something that reflects my true values. My chest tightened. Harrison Blackwell had walked the same path I was walking now. He had been rejected by people who should have supported him, and he had chosen to build something magnificent in response. Jennifer, I said, closing the journal carefully, what else do I need to know? The asking price is firm at $99 million. Harrison's estate wants a quick sale, but they're very selective. They want someone who will honor what Harrison built, not someone who will tear it down. I looked around the study. Every detail spoke of craftsmanship, patience, and a valuing of beauty and permanence over flash. What's the timeline for closing? If you can provide proof of funds and pass the estate's approval process, we could close within 2 weeks. Emma was standing at the window, looking out at the ocean. Dirk, could we really be happy in a place like this? It's so isolated. I joined her, wrapping my arms around her waist. Below us, waves crashed. Seabirds circled. The nearest neighbor was 12 miles away. Emma, what if isolation is exactly what we need right now? What if we need space to figure out who we really are, without other people's opinions and expectations? She leaned back against me, and I felt some tension leave her body. It would certainly be different from anything we've ever known. As we prepared to leave, Jennifer walked us to the helicopter. Dirk, can I ask what draws you to this property? I've shown it to several qualified buyers, but Harrison's estate has rejected every offer. I thought about her question as I looked back at the castle towers. Jennifer, have you ever felt like you were living someone else's life? Like every decision you made was influenced by what other people wanted from you? She nodded slowly. I think most people feel that way sometimes. This place, I continued, represents the opposite of that. It's a life built entirely on one person's vision, with no compromises or apologies. That's what I want to build for myself and Emma. Jennifer smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. I think Harrison would have liked you, Dirk. Let me make some calls this afternoon. As our helicopter lifted off from the island, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't just going to make an offer on Castle Windermere. I was going to make an offer so comprehensive and immediate that Harrison's estate couldn't refuse it. But first, I had one more stop to make. It was time to let my family know exactly what they had lost when they threw me away. 2 days later, I sat in the conference room of Hartford & Associates, the most prestigious law firm in our city, watching my lawyer, Marcus Hartford, review the final purchase documents. Across the table, Harrison Blackwell's estate attorney nodded approvingly as she signed page after page. Mr. Whitmore, she said, extending her hand, congratulations. You are now the sole owner of Windermere Island and Castle Windermere. Harrison would be pleased to know his legacy is in such capable hands. The wire transfer had gone through that morning, $99 million, transferred from my investment accounts. In a single transaction, I had just purchased more luxury than most people could imagine, and I had done it with money I earned, without a single dollar from my family. Emma sat beside me, still processing the magnitude. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up from this dream, she whispered. Marcus handed me a leather portfolio containing the deed, insurance documents, and keys to the castle. Dirk, you now own one of the most unique properties in North America. You also own the distinction of completing one of the largest private real estate transactions in Maine history. Owning the castle was only half of what I needed to accomplish. I had spent 3 sleepless nights thinking about my family's rejection, and I had come to a conclusion that surprised even me. I wasn't going to disappear quietly into my new life. I was going to give them one last chance to see who I really was. Marcus, I need you to do something else for me, I said. I need you to prepare a certified copy of these ownership documents, along with financial statements proving the purchase was made with liquid assets. I want everything documented and verified. He raised an eyebrow. May I ask why? I'm going to see my family one more time, I replied. They need to understand what they threw away. That afternoon, I had a custom suit tailored and hired a limousine for the drive to my family's estate in the hills outside the city. Emma understood that this confrontation was something I needed to handle alone, so she stayed at our apartment. The Whitmore family mansion, sitting on 20 acres of manicured grounds, was designed to project old money and established power. I had grown up in those rooms, but as the limousine pulled up the circular driveway, it felt like approaching a foreign country. My father was in his study when the housekeeper announced my arrival. Charles Whitmore, 62, silver-haired and imposing, commanded respect in boardrooms. He looked up from his desk with barely concealed irritation. I thought I made it clear that you were no longer welcome in this house. You did, I replied calmly, taking a seat across from his desk without being invited. But I have something to show you before I leave your life forever. My mother appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of voices. Patricia Whitmore had been beautiful once, but years of social climbing had hardened her features into a permanent expression of disapproval. What are you doing here, Dirk? We have nothing left to say to each other. Shane and Ashley emerged from other parts of the house. My brother, a younger version of our father, with the same expensive taste. Ashley, with our mother's sharp features and sharper tongue. Is this about money? Shane asked with obvious contempt. Because if you think we're going to reverse our decision about the trust fund, you're wasting your time. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out the leather portfolio Marcus had prepared. Actually, I wanted to show you something interesting. I placed the first document on my father's desk, the deed to Windmere Island, stamped and certified by the state of Maine. Yesterday morning, I purchased a private island off the coast of Maine. 30 acres, including a 13th-century castle that was transported from Scotland and rebuilt stone by stone. My father glanced at it dismissively. More computer games, I suppose. Some kind of online fantasy purchase. I placed the second document beside the first, a certified bank statement showing the wire transfer of $99 million. This is the payment receipt. $99 million, transferred from my personal investment accounts. The room fell silent. My mother picked up the bank statement and studied it, her face slowly changing from skepticism to pure shock. This can't be real, she finally managed. I placed a third document on the desk, a financial summary prepared by Douglas, showing my complete asset portfolio. These are my current holdings. As of this morning, my net worth is approximately $91 million. All of it earned through investments I made myself, starting with money from part-time jobs in college. Ashley snatched the summary and read it twice. This is impossible. You don't know anything about business or investing. Apparently, I know more than you thought, I replied, my voice steady. While you all dismissed my career as playing with computers, I was building something none of you could imagine. Shane studied the castle deed with growing amazement. You actually bought a castle? A real castle? A 13th-century Scottish castle, completely restored with modern amenities, I confirmed. 42 rooms, private harbor, helicopter pad, and enough land to ensure I never have to deal with neighbors who don't respect me. My father had been silent, but now he stood up slowly, his face flushing red with anger. You arrogant little show-off. Do you think flashing your money around proves anything? Money doesn't make you a better person. You're absolutely right, Dad, I said, meeting his gaze. Money doesn't make me better, but it does make me independent. It means I don't have to sit here and listen to you tell me I'm not good enough anymore. My mother set the documents down carefully. Dirk, where did this money really come from? Did you do something illegal? The accusation hung in the air like a poison cloud. Even now, faced with documented proof of my success, they couldn't believe I had achieved something extraordinary through my own effort. Every dollar came from legitimate investments in cryptocurrency and technology stocks. I started with $5,000 I saved from working part-time jobs, and I built it into this over 7 years. I never used a penny of family money. Ashley suddenly burst into tears. This isn't fair, she sobbed. You always got everything you wanted. You were always Dad's favorite, and now you're rich too. The accusation was so absurd, I almost laughed. Ashley, when was I ever anyone's favorite? When did I ever get what I wanted from this family? But her breakdown had triggered something. Shane was staring at the financial documents with an expression I had never seen before, genuine fear. Dirk, he said quietly, how did you know about investing? Who taught you? I taught myself, I replied. I spent 4 years at MIT studying computer science and economics. I learned to analyze market trends and identify emerging technologies. Everything you all called a waste of time actually prepared me for this. My father sank back into his chair, and for the first time in my life, he looked old and defeated. $99 million, he repeated softly. For a castle. For freedom, I corrected. For the right to live my life without anyone's approval except my own. The silence stretched on until Ashley finally spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. We made a terrible mistake. I looked around the room at these people who had shaped my entire life, and I felt something unexpected, pity. They had been so convinced of their own superiority that they couldn't recognize talent and ambition when it lived under their own roof. Yes, I said simply. You did make a mistake, and now you're going to live with the consequences. As I gathered my documents and prepared to leave, my father called out one last time. Dirk, wait. Can we talk about this? Can we work something out? I paused at the study door and looked back at him. Dad, 3 days ago, you screamed at me to get out of your house forever. You all agreed that I was a disgrace to the family name. Nothing has changed except your opinion of my bank account. But we're still family, my mother said desperately. No, I replied. Family supports each other. Family believes in each other. Family doesn't cut people off for choosing love over money. What we are is a group of people who share some DNA, and a lot of bad memories. I walked out of that mansion for the last time, leaving behind a lifetime of rejection and disappointment. But I also left behind something else, the need for their approval. For the first time in my 28 years, I was completely free to become whoever I wanted to be. The limousine drove me back to the city, where Emma was waiting with champagne and Chinese takeout from our favorite restaurant. We spent the evening planning our move to the castle, and for the first time since Thanksgiving dinner, I felt truly happy. But I should have known that my family wasn't going to let me disappear that easily. 1 month after moving into Castle Windermere, I was working in the castle's newly updated office when Marcus, my butler, knocked on the heavy wooden door. Marcus was a former Navy officer who had worked for Harrison Blackwell for 15 years and had graciously agreed to stay on. "Sir, there is a boat approaching the island. For passengers requesting permission to dock." I looked up from my laptop, where I had been reviewing quarterly reports from my consulting clients. Life on the island had exceeded my expectations. Emma had transformed the castle's library into a planning center for her new educational foundation, and I had established satellite offices for my tech consulting business. We were busier and more productive than ever before. "Did they identify themselves, Marcus?" "Yes, sir. They claimed to be your family members." I walked to the window overlooking the harbor and saw a rented yacht approaching our private dock. Through binoculars, I could clearly see my father, mother, brother, and sister on the deck, all dressed in their finest casual wear. "Sir, shall I tell them the island is private property and ask them to leave?" Marcus asked. I considered the option. Emma and I had specifically chosen this location to escape unwanted intrusions, and we had every legal right to refuse them access. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity or a lingering hope that they had genuinely changed. Either way, I wanted to hear what they had to say. "Marcus, please have Sophia prepare tea service for 6 in the Great Hall, and ask Thomas to meet our guests at the dock." 20 minutes later, my family stood in the castle's main entrance, looking around with expressions of amazement and barely concealed envy. The Great Hall was even more impressive than when I first toured it, now furnished with antique pieces Emma and I had carefully selected. Sophia, our chef, had prepared an elegant afternoon tea service, complete with finger sandwiches, scones, and pastries. Thomas, our groundskeeper, had arranged fresh flowers from the castle gardens. "Welcome to Castle Windermere," I said formally, gesturing for them to take seats around the massive oak table. My mother couldn't stop staring at the vaulted ceilings. "Dirk, this is absolutely magnificent. I had no idea places like this actually existed. Harrison Blackwell spent 20 years and $150 million creating this," Emma explained, joining us. "Every stone was numbered and shipped from Scotland, then rebuilt exactly as it stood 800 years ago." Ashley walked around in obvious wonder. "How many people live here?" "Just Emma and myself, plus our staff," I replied. "Marcus manages the household, Sophia handles all the cooking, and Thomas maintains the grounds and gardens." Shane was examining the authentic medieval tapestries. "This must cost a fortune to maintain." "Being worthwhile has a cost," I replied. "But when you love something enough to invest in it properly, the cost becomes irrelevant." My father had been uncharacteristically quiet, but now he cleared his throat nervously. "Dirk, we owe you an apology. A sincere, heartfelt apology for the way we treated you." I studied his face carefully. Charles Whitmore had never apologized to anyone in his life, certainly not to me. "What kind of apology?" I asked, my voice even. "We were wrong about you. Completely, utterly wrong. We judged you based on our own limited understanding, and we nearly lost the most successful member of our family because of our ignorance." Patricia nodded eagerly. "We had no idea you were building something this impressive. If you had known about my investments and business success, you would have treated me differently." I finished for her. "But that's exactly the problem, Mom. Your respect was conditional on my bank account balance." Emma served tea while I watched their faces carefully. They were trying to project humility and regret, but I could still see a calculating glint in their eyes. Shane finally got to the real reason for their visit. "Dirk, we need to be honest with you about something. The family business is facing some challenges." "The kind of challenges," Ashley interjected, "where we lost 3 major contracts this month. The city council rejected our bid for the new convention center, and 2 private developers decided to go with our competitors instead." My father's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. Our reputation in the construction industry has taken a serious hit. Some of our subcontractors are demanding payment up front because they're worried about our financial stability. I sipped my tea calmly while they outlined the scope of their problems. It was worse than I had imagined. Whitmore Construction was hemorrhaging money on multiple fronts and facing potential bankruptcy within 6 months. How much money are we talking about? I asked. $50 million would stabilize the company and allow us to fulfill our existing contracts, Shane admitted reluctantly. The number hung in the air. $50 million was more than half of my liquid assets, but it was also exactly the kind of investment that could generate significant returns if managed properly. And you want me to provide this $50 million? My mother leaned forward eagerly. Dirk, you would be saving the family legacy. Your grandfather built this company from nothing. It's been our foundation for 3 generations. The same company you said I wasn't good enough to inherit, I reminded her. The same family legacy you wrote me out of 4 weeks ago. Ashley started crying again. We know we made mistakes. Terrible, unforgivable mistakes. But we're still family, and family helps family. I looked around the great hall at the life Emma and I had built together, then back at the 4 people who had rejected everything I represented. They had driven me away when they thought I was worthless, and now they wanted me back because I was valuable. But there was something else in their eyes beyond desperation and greed. For the first time in my life, I saw a genuine fear. They were terrified of losing everything they had built their identities around. I need to think about this, I said finally. This isn't the kind of decision I can make over afternoon tea. My father stood up abruptly, his composure finally breaking completely. Dirk, please. I know we don't deserve your help, but we're running out of time. The bank is demanding payment on our outstanding loans, and if you default, you'll lose everything. I finished for him. You'll find out what it feels like to have the foundation of your life yanked away by people who are supposed to support you. The parallel wasn't lost on anyone. Emma reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. But here's what you don't understand, I continued. When you threw me out of your house, you taught me something valuable. You taught me that I could survive without you. You taught me that I could build something better on my own. Patricia was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Please don't abandon us the way we abandoned you. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking our private harbor. I could hear Ashley sobbing and Shane trying to comfort her. Finally, I turned back to face them. I'm not going to abandon you, but I'm also not going to rescue you unconditionally. If I help save your company, it's going to be on my terms, with my conditions, and with consequences for everyone who participated in rejecting me. My father's eyes lit up with desperate hope. What kind of conditions? Come back here next week, and I'll tell you. But understand this. If you want my help, you're going to have to prove that you've actually changed, not just that you need my money. After they left, Emma and I walked along the beach that surrounded our island. The sun was setting over the Atlantic, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple that no painter could ever capture. Are you going to help them? She asked. I'm going to give them a chance to earn my help, I replied. And they're going to have to demonstrate that they understand what family really means. I had no idea whether they would be willing to meet my conditions, but I was about to find out exactly how desperate they really were. The following week, my family returned to Castle Windermere with a different energy entirely. Gone was the desperate pleading from their first visit. Instead, they sat around the great hall table with the resigned dignity of people who knew they were completely at my mercy. I had spent 7 days preparing for this meeting, working with Marcus to create a comprehensive business plan that would save their company while ensuring they could never take advantage of my generosity again. Before we discuss money, I began, placing a thick folder on the table. We need to discuss respect and accountability and the kind of changes that will be required if I decide to invest in your company. Emma sat beside me, her presence a quiet reminder of everything they had tried to take away from me. She had spent the week researching family therapy programs and designing accountability measures that would ensure lasting change. First, I continued, let's acknowledge what really happened 4 weeks ago. Dad, you didn't throw me out because I disappointed you. You threw me out because my success made you feel insecure about your own choices. My father's face flushed red, but he didn't interrupt. Shane, you supported Dad because you were afraid I might challenge your position as the heir apparent to the family business. Shane stared at his hands, unable to meet my eyes. Ashley, you participated because you've always been jealous of any attention I received from our parents, even negative attention. Ashley's tears started flowing again, but this time she didn't deny the accusation. And Mom, you went along with all of it because you've spent your entire marriage prioritizing social status over your children's happiness. Patricia opened her mouth to object, then closed it again without speaking. Now, I said, opening the folder, here are my conditions for providing the $50 million your company needs to survive. The first document was a complete restructuring plan for Whitmore Construction. Dad, you will step down as CEO immediately. Shane will take over day-to-day operations, but I will maintain 51% ownership and final approval authority for all major decisions. My father looked like I had slapped him. You want to take over my company? I want to save your company. Your leadership has brought it to the edge of bankruptcy. I will bring it back to profitability. The second document outlined employment terms for Ashley. Ashley, you will work full-time for the company in project management. No special treatment, no executive privileges until you earn them. You'll start at the same salary as other project managers and advance based on performance. Ashley nodded slowly. I understand. The third document was perhaps the most important. All four of you will attend family therapy sessions twice a week for the next year. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison is one of the best family counselors in the state, and she specializes in repairing relationships damaged by money and power dynamics. My mother finally found her voice. Dirk, therapy seems a bit excessive. Mom, does it seem more excessive than cutting your son out of your life because he fell in love with a kindergarten teacher? She had no answer for that. There's one more condition, I said, placing the final document on the table. You will publicly acknowledge your mistakes and apologize not just to me, but to Emma. She deserves an apology for the way you treated her, and you're going to give her one in front of everyone who witnessed your behavior at Thanksgiving dinner. Shane looked up, hopefully. And if we agree to all of this, you'll invest the $50 million? If you agree to all of this and demonstrate genuine change over the next 6 months, I'll invest the $50 million. But the money comes with permanent conditions. I maintain controlling interest in the company, final approval authority over major decisions, and the right to remove any family member who returns to the old patterns of behavior. The room fell silent as they absorbed the magnitude of what I was proposing. I wasn't just offering to save their company. I was demanding a complete transformation of our family dynamic. Finally, my father spoke. Dirk, you're asking us to give up control of everything we built. Dad, you already lost control. Your company is failing, your family is broken, and your son owns a castle while you're facing bankruptcy. I'm offering you a chance to rebuild both the business and the family, but only if you're willing to do it the right way this time. Emma leaned forward, with remarkable grace considering how cruelly they had treated her. I want you all to understand something. Dirk didn't have to invite you here today. He could have let your company fail and never spoken to any of you again. The fact that he's willing to help you despite everything you've done shows the kind of person he really is. Ashley looked directly at Emma for the first time. Emma, I am so sorry for the way I treated you. You seem like a wonderful person, and Dirk is lucky to have you. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Shane cleared his throat nervously. Dirk, can I ask you something? Why are you willing to help us after everything we've done? I've been asking myself the same question all week. Because cutting people off permanently is what our family does, and I want to break that pattern. Because Emma has taught me that forgiveness is possible when people demonstrate genuine change. And because, despite everything, I still believe in the potential for our family to be better than we have been. My father stood up slowly and extended his hand across the table. Son, I accept your conditions, all of them, and I want you to know that I am deeply, genuinely sorry for the way I treated you and Emma. One by one, they each shook my hand and agreed to my terms. Patricia apologized to Emma with tears in her eyes. Shane acknowledged that he had been threatened by my success instead of proud of it. Ashley admitted that her jealousy had poisoned her judgment for years. As they prepared to leave, my father paused at the harbor. Dirk, how did you know our company was in trouble? We tried to keep the financial problems private. I smiled for the first time since they arrived. Dad, I've been monitoring the construction industry in our city for years. I knew about your lost contracts before you did. I also knew that you would eventually need help. and I wanted to be prepared to offer it on terms that would actually fix the underlying problems. "You've been watching out for us, even after we threw you away?" he asked, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "I've been preparing for the possibility that someday you might want to be a real family, instead of just people who share a name." 6 months later, Emma and I hosted Thanksgiving dinner at Castle Windermere. The Great Hall was decorated with autumn flowers from our gardens, and Sophia had prepared a feast that rivaled anything from my childhood. But the real transformation was in the people around the table. My father had thrived in his new role as a construction foreman, finding joy in hands-on work he had missed during his years as an executive. Shane was successfully running the company, with profits up 30% from the previous year. Ashley had earned 2 promotions and was engaged to a project engineer she met through her work. Most importantly, my mother had discovered a passion for volunteering at Emma's Educational Foundation, working with children from underprivileged families. The woman who had once been obsessed with social status was now finding fulfillment in service to others. Dr. Morrison's family therapy sessions had been difficult, but transformative. We had confronted decades of dysfunction, competition, and conditional love. We had learned to communicate without attacking, to support without controlling, and to love without conditions. As we raised our glasses for the traditional Thanksgiving toast, my father stood up, tears in his eyes. "This year, I'm thankful for second chances. I'm thankful for a son who was strong enough to forgive us and wise enough to demand that we become better people. I'm thankful for a daughter-in-law who showed us what unconditional love looks like. And I'm thankful that sometimes the worst mistakes we make can lead to the best changes in our lives." Emma squeezed my hand under the table, and I realized that somewhere along the way, we had actually become the family I had always wanted. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but honest. Not based on money or status, but on mutual respect and genuine affection. Looking around the table at these people who had rejected me and then fought to earn my forgiveness, I understood something fundamental about justice and redemption. True justice isn't about punishment. It's about creating conditions for people to become their best selves. And redemption isn't about forgetting the past. It's about transforming it into wisdom. 2 years after that first confrontational Thanksgiving dinner, Emma and I stood on the castle's highest tower, watching the sunrise paint the Atlantic Ocean in shades of gold and crimson. Tomorrow would mark our wedding anniversary, and we had invited both families to celebrate with us at Castle Windermere. The transformation in our lives had exceeded my wildest expectations. Emma's Educational Foundation now operated in 12 states, providing technology and resources to underfunded schools. My consulting business had expanded internationally, with clients from Silicon Valley to Tokyo seeking my expertise in emerging technologies. But the most remarkable change was in my relationship with my family. What had started as a desperate financial rescue had evolved into something I had never experienced before: genuine partnership and mutual respect. Shane appeared in the castle's great hall as Emma and I came down from the tower. He was carrying architectural plans for the company's latest project, a sustainable housing development that would provide affordable homes for middle-class families. "Dirk, I wanted to show you the final designs for the Riverside Commons project," he said, spreading the blueprints across the oak table. "We're incorporating solar panels, energy-efficient heating systems, and community gardens that residents can use to grow their own food." I studied the plans with genuine admiration. Under Shane's leadership, Whitmore Construction had transformed from a company focused solely on profit margins into an organization that prioritized environmental sustainability and community impact. "Shane, this is incredible work. How did you come up with the community garden concept?" "Actually, that was Ashley's idea," he admitted. "She's been working with local environmental groups to identify ways we can make our developments more sustainable and community-focused." Ashley had surprised everyone with her passion for environmental conservation. Her engagement to David, the project engineer, had introduced her to a community of people who measured success by positive impact rather than personal wealth. My mother entered the Great Hall carrying a tablet loaded with photos from her latest volunteer trip. Patricia now spent 3 months each year working with international education charities, helping to build schools and libraries in developing countries. "Look at this," she said excitedly, showing us pictures of children in a rural village in Guatemala. "We just finished building their first computer lab, funded entirely by Emma's foundation. These kids now have access to technology that will completely change their educational opportunities. Emma looked at the photos with tears in her eyes. Mom Patricia, you're doing amazing work. These children will remember this opportunity for the rest of their lives. The casual use of Mom Patricia still surprised me sometimes. Emma had never replaced her own mother, who had passed away when Emma was in college, but she had found a maternal figure in the woman who had once rejected her so cruelly. My father arrived for lunch carrying a tool belt and wearing work clothes covered in sawdust. At 64, Charles had discovered a passion for hands-on carpentry that reminded him why he had fallen in love with construction in the first place. "Sorry, I'm late," he said, hanging his tool belt by the kitchen door. "I was helping David finish the custom cabinets for the affordable housing project. We should have the first 10 units ready for families to move in next month." Sophia served lunch on the castle's outdoor terrace, overlooking gardens that Thomas had expanded to include a working greenhouse and organic vegetable plots. The meal featured produce grown on our own island, prepared with techniques Sophia had learned from cooking classes Emma had arranged for all the castle staff. As we ate, Marcus approached with the afternoon mail delivery. Among the usual business correspondence was a letter that made my heart skip a beat. "Sir, this arrived via special courier from Harvard Business School." I opened the envelope and read the contents twice before speaking. "They've offered me a position as a visiting professor in their entrepreneurship program. They want me to teach a course on alternative investment strategies and emerging technology markets." Emma grabbed my arm excitedly. "Dirk, that's incredible. You'd be teaching the next generation of business leaders." Shane grinned broadly. "Professor Whitmore, I like the sound of that. It's only a part-time position, 1 semester per year," I explained. "I could maintain my consulting practice and continue working with the family company." My father set down his fork and looked at me seriously. "Son, you should absolutely accept that position. You've built expertise that other people need to learn from, and you have a responsibility to share that knowledge." The support in his voice still amazed me sometimes. 2 years earlier, he had dismissed my career as playing with computers. Now he was encouraging me to become a university professor. After lunch, Emma and I walked along the beach that circled our island. The November air was crisp and clean, and we could see seals sunbathing on the rocks near the lighthouse. "Are you happy with how everything turned out?" Emma asked, taking my hand. I thought about her question as waves crashed gently against the shore. "Emma, 2 years ago, I thought happiness meant proving my family wrong about me. I thought success meant accumulating enough wealth and power to make them regret rejecting me. And now," she prompted, "now, I realize that real success isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about creating the conditions for everyone to be right. My family wasn't wrong to value hard work and business success. They were wrong to assume those values had to come at the expense of love and acceptance." We paused at the lighthouse, where Thomas had installed a bench that offered panoramic views of the ocean. Emma sat beside me, and I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. "The castle was never really about escaping from my family," I continued. "It was about creating a space where our family could heal and grow into something better. It was about building a foundation strong enough to support forgiveness and change." Emma leaned against me, and I felt the contentment that had become a constant presence in our lives. "Do you think your father really understands what he put you through?" "I think he understands that his fear of losing control nearly cost him everything that actually mattered." The therapy sessions helped all of us see how our family patterns had been shaped by insecurity and competition, instead of love and support. As the sun began to set, we walked back toward the castle, its towers silhouetted against the evening sky like something from a fairy tale. But this wasn't a fairy tale. This was real life, complicated, messy, and beautiful in ways that no story could fully capture. That evening, we gathered in the castle's library for what had become our traditional family reading time. Ashley was curled up in a leather chair, reading environmental policy papers for her latest project. Shane studied architectural magazines, always looking for innovative design ideas. My parents sat together on the sofa, Patricia reading aloud from letters she had received from children at schools supported by Emma's foundation. Emma and I shared the window seat, working together on plans for expanding her foundation's technology programs. The fire crackled in the stone fireplace, and outside, waves continued their eternal rhythm against the rocky coastline. Looking around that room, At these people who had become my true family through choice, rather than obligation, I understood something fundamental about forgiveness and redemption. The greatest victory isn't defeating the people who hurt you. It's creating the opportunity for them to become people who would never hurt you again. My father had been right about one thing during our confrontation 2 years earlier. Money doesn't make you a better person. But money can create opportunities for people to discover their better selves. The castle hadn't made us wealthy. We had already been wealthy in potential. The castle had simply given us the space and security to explore that potential without fear. As I prepared for bed that night, I found myself thinking about the Harvard teaching opportunity. Part of me was excited about the chance to share my knowledge with ambitious young entrepreneurs, but another part was nervous about returning to the academic world that had originally launched my career. Emma sensed my uncertainty. What's worrying you about the Harvard position? I'm not sure I'm qualified to teach other people how to build successful businesses. I still feel like I'm figuring it out myself most of the time. She smiled and kissed my cheek. Dirk, that's exactly why you're qualified. The best teachers aren't people who have all the answers. They're people who are still asking the right questions. Later, as I lay awake, listening to the ocean waves below our tower window, I thought about the journey that had brought us to this point. 2 years ago, I had been a successful but emotionally wounded young man, desperate for approval from people who couldn't see my value. Tonight, I was a husband, son, brother, business owner, and potentially a university professor, surrounded by people who loved and respected me for exactly who I was. The transformation hadn't been easy. Family therapy had forced all of us to confront decades of dysfunction and pain. Financial restructuring had required giving up control and accepting vulnerability. Building trust had demanded consistent demonstration of changed behavior over many months. But the results had exceeded anything I could have imagined when I first signed the deed to Castle. Winmere. I hadn't just bought a house. I had created a foundation for the life I actually wanted to live, filled with people who had learned to love without conditions and support without controlling. Tomorrow, Emma and I would celebrate 2 years of marriage, surrounded by family members who had earned the right to call themselves family through their actions rather than their DNA. We would toast the future we had built together and the past we had transformed through forgiveness and hard work. And someday, when we have children of our own, they will grow up in a family that measures success by kindness rather than competition, that values character over achievement, and that understands the difference between earning love and demanding it. The greatest lesson I learned through this entire experience isn't about money or success or even family. It's about the power we all have to create the relationships and life we actually want, rather than accepting the ones we think we deserve. Sometimes, the most important thing you can do is walk away from people who don't appreciate you. But sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is create the space for those same people to learn how to appreciate you properly. The choice between those options isn't always clear, and the outcomes aren't always guaranteed. But the effort to build something better is always worthwhile, especially when you have the security and resources to take that risk. Castle Winmere gave me more than a beautiful home. It gave me the platform to demand better from the people I loved and the stability to wait for them to rise to that standard. Not everyone gets that opportunity, but for those who do, the responsibility is clear. Use your advantages to create opportunities for others to become their best selves, rather than using them to punish others for their worst moments. That's the real difference between revenge and justice. Revenge seeks to diminish others. Justice seeks to elevate everyone. Looking back on everything that happened, I can honestly say that getting thrown out of my family's house was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because it felt good at the time, but because it forced me to discover what I was actually capable of achieving when I stopped waiting for other people's permission to be successful. And the greatest success of all turned out to be building a family based on choice, respect, and genuine affection, rather than obligation, competition, and conditional love. Have you ever been in a situation where family relationships became damaged by money, success, or different values? How did you handle the choice between walking away and trying to rebuild those relationships? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that sometimes the most painful endings can become the foundation for the most beautiful new beginnings. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like, Subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family challenges, and share it with anyone who might need to hear that it's possible to transform even the most broken relationships into something stronger and more genuine. Wishing you the courage to demand the love and respect you deserve, and the wisdom to recognize it when people are genuinely trying to give it to you.